Welcome to Voyage, the first podcast on crypto's real-world use cases, where you can also discover crypto's global impact one region at a time. Bon voyage!
When your exchange rate fluctuates like a shitcoin, you end up in a difficult situation. So many goods becoming like so much more expensive for regular people. There's lots of things that are going wrong. It's almost hard to list. I would say that generally there is a wide distrust of institutions simply because people are tired of provide normal financial services in a nice interface with good customer service. And, if you do it right, people would be pretty happy about that.
Thank you for being here, Kofi. And we've been working for a while. I really respect everything you've done in the crypto space. Like I mentioned before, the concept of Voyage is just really exploring the state of economy and also different culture, different regions. What is really going on in, the emerging market, and also how is crypto a part of it? I think for me, I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to the countries and regions I've never been. So it's really great to have someone like you that's, an expert in Ghana and also Africa. You've personally lived there and grew up there. Like, I think I also told you for that, I think a lot of people in the industry have realized, we have enough infra, we have too many infra, but then we were kind of pivoted to consumer dApps. People realize everyone is looking for different kind of consumer dApps. I think this is my opinion, but I think it's gonna come out in different forms in different countries and regions because the consumer behavior, the culture, economy is just so different everywhere. So yeah, I know that, you're from Ghana. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal background and also how did you get into crypto?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. The short version of the story is that I grew up in Ghana, then I moved to the UK for university in about 2015, and it was in 2017 when I got into crypto, same as a lot of people. There was all of the ICO madness going on, lots of hype on the news, and I was just lucky that some of the friends I was living with decided to spend a bunch of their student loan money on graphics cards so that we could start mining Bitcoin and then Ethereum out of the flat. Similar to a lot of people who tried to do the same thing around that time, that farm made some money in 2017 and then all the money disappeared in 2018. It just turned out we weren't geniuses, but that episode is kind of what introduced me to crypto as an idea. And during the pandemic, so 2020, by that point, I graduated, I was working. I jumped back into things again because I had a bunch of free time being at home for the whole of the pandemic. And I think that I was just really interested seeing online all of the stuff that was happening around DeFi and NFTs. But I was working as a graduate transport planner, and graduate transport planners don't make a lot of money. So I couldn't really get involved in the space through like whatever it is people do, trading or buying NFTs or whatever. So I figured that I should try and get involved more through data analysis because I was doing that in my day job. It was something I knew how to do that didn't cost any money. And so yeah, I just started figuring out how to do crypto data analysis, figuring out the tools out there, and posting online about stuff I was figuring out by myself. And that led to me leaving, the traditional world of work to working in crypto full time. First at this early stage crypto VC fund called One Confirmation, and then now by myself, just working as a contractor, helping out teams like Scroll and other teams with the data problems that they have. And it's kind of been the journey.
Yeah, I mean, you're also building Bundle Bear, right? I think it's one of the best tools that people can use when it comes to analytics in Web3.
Oh yeah, for so I mean, on top of the contracting work for sure, I also still try and make a lot of sort of free, public good, open source tools. So Bundle Bear, which tracks ERC 4327 smart contract wallet usage is one of them. I have this site gasfees.io where I track out gas fees. Uh, there's a period in between one confirmation and contracting where I was pretty active in contributing to DeFi Llama a lot. So if you've ever visited the hacks page on DeFi Llama or the trending contracts page, I initially made the sort of the backends for those. And yeah, it's been a interesting sort of spot I've ended up in. Like I just think it's really fun to work with different teams on the time on different data problems. And, because I work remotely now because I spend some of the year at home in Ghana and some of the year in the UK and some of the year in other places. And I mean, the people who I do for, they don't mind. As long as
As
the
long as the
work
work
gets
gets
done,
done,
Yeah,
everybody's very
yeah,
everybody's
with it.
yeah,
So,
exactly. I think that's why a lot of people love about the space, right? You just deliver wherever wherever you want to live. You just do the work, do the job, and then you get paid and have a great lifestyle.
yeah, for sure. And it's lucky because, I mean, nowadays people are catching up to remote work, digital nomadism, and everything post-pandemic. But I mean, even pre-pandemic, crypto was always very open to anyone, anywhere. We don't even need to know who you are. You can be anonymous, you can do whatever. As long as you can produce, then you're a part of the ecosystem. And that's, yeah, it's a culture that I'm a fan of. I think that is a good equalizer of things if you can just judge people by what they're able to contribute rather than whether or not they just happens to be in the right place at the right time, luckily.
Yeah, for sure. And you just mentioned, you still spent some time back home in Ghana. I remember it was probably a few weeks ago or a month ago, you posted a tweet that was, that went viral. That also kind of enlightened me. You talked about why you're still optimistic about crypto. I think you specifically mentioned the economy is not doing so well in Ghana. Can you tell us, what is going on with the economy in Ghana?
Yeah, I mean, there's
there's
lots of
lots of
things that are
things that are
going
going
wrong.
wrong.
It's
It's
almost
almost
hard to
hard to
list
list
as
as
it's,
it's
I mean, one of
one of
the
the
biggest
biggest
problems
problems
is
is
that
that
over the
over the
past
past
year or
year or
so,
so,
there's
there's
just
just
been
been
crazy
crazy
fluctuation in
fluctuation
the
in the
exchange
exchange
rate. So
rate.
I
So I
think
think
maybe a
maybe a
year
year
ago would
ago
have
would have
been
been
10
10
Ghana
Ghana
cedis to
cedis to
one
one
dollar,
dollar,
and
and
now
now
it's
it's
about
about
16
16
Ghana
Ghana
cedis to
cedis to
one
one
dollar,
dollar,
which
which
hurts a
hurts a
lot of
lot of
people
people
because, I
because I
mean,
mean,
as a
as a
country,
country,
Ghana
Ghana
imports a
imports a
lot of
lot of
things,
things,
and
and
when your
when your
exchange
exchange
rate
rate
fluctuates like
fluctuates
a
like a
shit
shit
coin,
coin,
you end
you
up
end
in
up
a
in a
difficult
difficult
situation
situation
of
of
Yeah.
so
so
many
many
goods
goods
becoming
becoming
like so
like
much
so
more
much more
expensive
expensive
for
for
regular
regular people.
people. Um, and if you kind of think about what's causing that, it's hard to pinpoint the exact cause because there are just so many levels of mismanagement, right? I mean, I think at the moment supposed to be in, I mean, I think the World Bank or the IMF, somebody says that we're in a debt crisis because I think at the moment Ghana's debt is something like 90% of the GDP, which sounds crazy because that is crazy. It's not supposed to be that big. It's sort of in the past decade or so, that number went from being like half of the GDP to 90%. It's just the number just, you know, straight up into the right. And regular people haven't really seen any sort of benefit from all of that debt because of corruption. I mean, you have all of this money flowing in from, the foreign powers that be. Theoretically, the government should be using that as well as the tax revenues to like get people better infrastructure and get people better schooling and, pull us out of the situation that we're in. But instead, you hear crazy stories of, ministers embezzling millions of dollars and people flying these private jets and you still have the same power outages and water issues and whatever issues that you had before. Um, so yeah, it's a real mess. Many levels. I think earlier this year, government was defaulting on government bonds, which is crazy because anybody who does any sort of financial strategy for themselves knows that buying government bonds is supposed to be the safest, low risk, like, yeah, the least fluctuating investment that you can do. You just buy government bonds. And our government managed to mess that up and defaulted on bonds. And there was some agreement that they had to make at the start of this year with all of these foreign powers to, yeah, figure out how to devalue the bonds. And I'm not an economist, so I find it hard even hearing all of this news to like piece apart what exactly is going on. But I understand that's a mess. I think that most people understand that's a mess and they can see it reflected in just life being more difficult when it comes to paying for the things they need, school fees, uh, saving, and doing all of that.
You also mentioned you and also a lot of people in Ghana, they don't trust the financial system. They don't trust the government. So is it because of corruption? The government is really not doing what they're supposed to do? Or are there other kind of inherent reasons the people in Ghana don't really trust the banks or the financial systems?
Yeah, I would say that generally there is a wide distrust of institutions simply because people are tired. I mean, they've heard all of the stories of all of the corruption from the current administration, the administration before that one, the administration before that one. And so, yeah, people generally just don't really have trust in the government. On top of that, personally don't have much trust for banks because, I look at all of the crazy stuff happening with the financial system and I think, well, if all of this is going wrong, if inflation is acting like this and exchange rates are acting like that and the government is defaulting on bonds, you know, if anything goes wrong, can I really trust these banks to take care of me? I don't have as much certainty of that as I do when I use a bank in wherever it's the Europe or the US or wherever else. Plus, I mean, personally, just anecdotally, I've heard a good few horror stories from just friends around, people getting maybe say people want to get a US dollar denominated bank account or savings account because, exchange rate fluctuates a lot and, you put this money in the bank and sometimes you go and try and spend or withdraw and you can't get your money out because whatever it is, the bank says that they don't have enough dollars in reserve, so you're going to have to wait or whatever it is, and you don't really have a good insight into what the situation is. Uh, and so yeah, I mean that sounds like the worst case scenario, right? Banks are very what people want is, you put money in the bank, whenever you want to spend it, you can spend it. Like
Uh,
people who are
Trust.
more, yeah, just, you just trust that you can just use your money that's supposed to be your money whenever you want. And in reality, it doesn't always come out like that, especially if you want to hold a currency that isn't the Ghana cedi, and nobody wants to hold the Ghana cedi for good reasons.
That makes sense. And yeah, thanks for sharing some of the horror stories. I think you also mentioned the economy is really bad. People don't trust the bank. It actually affect normal folks' life on daily basis, right? I think when I was reading, I was like doing research on Ghana. I think you guys have a very, very young population. The median was like 21 or something. Like, I also think, young people are, what's going to make this country like innovate in the future, right? So in this current like economic condition, what are the young people doing in Ghana? Like, do they have a specific sector they really want to work to? Do they really want to work in an industry they like? So what is the sentiment of young people in Ghana?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard setup because I mean people go through all of the struggles everybody goes through to, try to get to university, to try to get through national service. We have a sort of a mandatory national service back home where you have to do a national service job for like a year or two before you continue on and, just enter the working world. You want to be able to do the basic stuff. So just right? But you want to be able to just pay for rent, move out, do whatever you want to do. And in the current like climate of things, a graduate out of Ghana University who's living in the capital city like isn't getting paid enough to do most of the stuff that you need to do. So I mean, unless you're lucky to like have parents you can live at home with or whatever it is. It's like things are kind of messed up. And people want to do normal stuff. Like every want to be like a whatever it is, a nurse, doctor, lawyer, engineer. Nothing that different. But would- there's sort of all of these structural problems that mean that there aren't enough jobs for people who are graduating. The jobs that people do get don't pay them enough to live in. If you want to live in the big city, definitely not. And even if you what's the word, do have a job that's paying you enough to live, like what's the sort of the progression to get to a comfortable level of, just a normal level of comfort in life. The ladder isn't set up in the way that it is in other countries for people to have like upwards mobility. And that causes a lot of frustration for young people, obviously.
I see. Do you also see that as an opportunity, or it's really hard for structure like that in Ghana. Because sometimes in certain countries, when there are a lot of like chaotic stuff going on or economy is not doing so well, there isn't like a set structure, right? Like for example, for certain countries, it's kind of like you're born with whatever status or level you're at, and you kind of just stay in that level. You can't really go higher in the society, right? But is that the same situation in Ghana, or you can still try to kind of make it to another level?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's nice to try and think about whether or not there's like some opportunity in the current situation, try and be optimistic about it. I guess if there's a silver lining out there for somebody, it's really just that I think that there are tons of young, super intelligent, super qualified, young people in Ghana who would you know, love to do like work to the best of their ability and get rewarded for it. And we do have enough opportunities to sort of serve them in our own country. And now that we're post-pandemic and we live in a world where people are more open to the idea of remote work and internet work and so on, maybe there's an opportunity there for things to balance out a bit with young people getting more remote jobs or, companies starting to realize that like, hey, this software engineer who I'm spending 300,000 US dollars for in San Francisco. There's somebody in Ghana who is just as intelligent, just as qualified, has a similar degree, who would do that for a fraction of that price. And, this isn't like charity. This isn't like people doing things as the good of their own heart, but just like logically, like pragmatically, I think that uh, there's opportunity for companies and for institutions to kind of see that there's undervalued and like undercompensated talent here. And yeah, just sort of take advantage of the fact that like we are now in a truly like global economy and everything, and it shouldn't just be that if you're living in Ghana, you can only work for Ghanaian companies. But it's hard. I don't think that we are at a stage at a country right now where there's good upwards mobility of you saying that like you didn't already start from a family that was well off and you want to create that for yourself. Uh, of yeah, just the struggles with the job market and with inflation and all of that. I mean, I was super lucky. I happened to be born into a family that was super privileged, which allowed me to go to university abroad and then have all of this great schooling that allowed me to take advantage of all of these great job opportunities once I graduated, not just in Ghana, but around the world. It's only like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of young people in Ghana who are in my very lucky situation, which I had nothing to do with. I was just lucky to be randomly born in the right place at the right time. And I think you'd want it to be the case where you don't need to like have pulled out a lottery ticket to be able to, yeah, get access to those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You mentioned before a lot of young people, they should know that you graduated from a good Ghana university, have, for example, like really good technical skill, like computer science, being a good software engineer. They should have the opportunity to work remotely for a big tech company or Web3 crypto company, blockchain company. I think that's actually where crypto and Web3 becomes very popular because I think a lot of people kind of start to know that Web3 is generally a space where you can work around the world, anywhere. And also, I was reading one of the research online about crypto in African market and also in Ghana. I think Ghana has like the top 10 crypto adoption in the world, just like after a few developed country. So that's actually very surprising. Just like from my understanding, I think it's both, because of the economy, the distrust between government and the people, and then also the really young population. What are people's perception of crypto in Ghana right now?
Yeah, it's uh it's out question because of course I live in my own little bubble of I'm super into crypto and so I know other people who are sort of into it. I mean, it's still very early days. There's a lot of adoption in the sense of a relatively small country. There's like a good amount of flow on centralized exchanges of like, people buying coins to basically try and find a way out. Like either it's sort of I want to be able to like send and receive stables with people in other places. Like, I have a friend who lives in Paris who would sometimes send like money to a sister at home through stable coins on Binance, or it's people like trying to gamble on the hope that like, or if I buy whatever it is, Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever it is, maybe this will go up and like help me with my financial situation in a way that like I don't believe that the regular course of work life is going to help me out with my financial situation. Um, I don't think that we are yet at a stage where most people are aware of like the other opportunities you were talking about when it comes to like maybe working in the industry more, or sort of interacting with more on-chain apps and everything. But I think that the perception, I think, is that people aware that we're all sort of in a bad situation as a country. And so when people talk about crypto, they kind of are curious about what, how it can help them personally. Like, can I change my financial future through this thing that you're promising me is going to like go up 10x or whatever? I think that's like in, same as in a lot of other countries, that's generally the perception that folk have. And then there's a smaller subset of folk who are more crypto native who might sort of have more knowledge of some of the use cases around like, hey, I can use this basically just as a way to like buy US dollars more easily online and store US dollar denominated tokens more easily online, and maybe even do some work that is in the industry to earn money on the internet or whatever it is.
That makes sense. And then previously, we kind of talked about the distrust between government and people. So, what is the policy towards crypto from the government right now?
It's one of those things that is still being figured out. I think it was just earlier this year the Ghana Central Bank released some, I don't know whether you want to call them draft guidelines for what they're thinking of when it comes to how to register businesses as virtual asset service providers. Like basically the licenses that you would need as a business in Ghana to be like, hey, I'm starting my stablecoin app, or I want to like, do some other form of build some other form of app to like help people buy or trade or use crypto in the country. At the moment, there's no like crypto bill, and right now we're very much in the process of like, oh, there's like skeleton guidelines out there of they're thinking about this crypto bill and what should be in it and trying to figure out what they should do, and who knows, maybe next year or maybe the year after that. I'm not like plugged in well enough to how this sort of public central bank stuff works, but we might see the sort of solidified version of here's what the rules are for companies that want to build, crypto products and like serve Ghanaian customers. Um, because yeah, I mean, I think that we have so many problems that up until recently, probably just the stance from the Ghana government was that they weren't paying attention to crypto that much. I mean, they were just thinking of things, so much stuff going on. Yeah, but it's now become it's now at least grown enough that it's entered the radar that they feel the need to, figure out how to regulate and legislate and have some sort of control of what's going on.
Okay. So it's not illegal, right? So like right now it's kind of just like, is it like a gray area? Do people consider this as like, in like a gray area, or it's just no one is really regulating it?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, no, crypto isn't illegal in Ghana, and there's no, but at the same time, like I'm saying, there's kind of a hole in regulation around what exactly all of the rules are. Um, and so you could call it a gray area, in the sense that it just, it's kind of just been ignored. It just hasn't been addressed up until now. And I want to see in the next year or 2 years what stance the government decides to take, whether it be being pro crypto or anti crypto. Uh, and yeah, just sort of waiting to find out what that situation will be.
Got it, got it. Yeah, I have a question that's more maybe just like your personal opinion. It could be pretty subjective. So there's like a historical problem of failure in financial institutions in Ghana. But a lot of governments are trying to issue their own, digital currency. I think probably every government's going to consider that. Do you think if the Ghana government would issue digital currency or digital assets, or, when people have the choice, right? Because right now, I think a lot of people are just buying Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever to kind of store the value or doing investment. So I think like when it comes to if the government were to issue something, official digital currency, do you think people would prefer that more or they would trust something decentralized like Bitcoin or Ethereum more?
Yeah, I think that at the moment, I mean, from what I know, there isn't yet appetite on the side of the government to sort of look into CBDCs or try and implement CBDCs. I mean, maybe that would be different 5 or 10 years from now, but at least in the immediate future, there isn't really an appetite for it. And I mean, if there was in some theoretical future, like a Ghana Central Bank CD coin, I don't think that people would be that interested for the reasons that we're talking about of just the exchange rate acting all mad, and people would much rather hold uh something that's denominated in a US dollar that they know that probably the US economy is going to be fine, and no matter what happens with the Ghanaian economy, value of a dollar will remain relatively stable, at least in comparison to what we have. Or they would, want to hold something like a Bitcoin, which, they might hold in the hope that, like, hey, maybe if this whole crypto thing works out, this thing can go up 2, 3 times or 10 times the next 10 years, and it can help me out in a way that I can't really achieve otherwise. Because, I mean, if you're living in Ghana, what are your options really? There aren't that many. It's hard to like get access to for like a normal Ghanaian access to a savings account that will like pay them a good like you know high yield savings rate, or to take out a loan to start a business where the interest on the loan is not some crazy double digit number, or to, just take some of the income and say, like, hey, I want to invest in the stock market. Like, doing all of these things is difficult. And so the way that people build wealth in other countries, you can't really follow the same playbook because you don't have the same access to what most would consider to be basic financial services. So then why not like take a gamble on like, hey, maybe Bitcoin will go up, and think about able to get out of that.
Definitely. I think a lot of people right now are very bullish on, payments, cross-border payments, or just like, general payment apps using blockchain technology around the world, or specifically in one country, because like you mentioned, people in Ghana or maybe other countries in the emerging market, they don't really have access we have in, for example, the UK or the US and China didn't really have the financial access to even like basic banking, don't even think about like investment or return, right? So how do people get access to crypto in Ghana right now? Is it like through the big exchange like Binance or OTCs?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's pretty much, you know, Binance, Binance, Binance. That's the main answer for most people. And I mean, it's Binance in not just Ghana, but like in most African countries, is different from Binance in US, Europe, UK, in the sense that the sort of the main Binance product at home is the P2P exchange, rather than like the sort of big Binance order book that you would be knowingly or unknowingly trading on when you're in the West. So really what happens is that, say that I have 10 USDC and I want to buy whatever it is, 160 Ghana cedis. I would go into Binance P2P, and there's sort of like an escrow system. So I would be connected with a whatever it is, a Binance agent, Binance market maker, whatever you want to say the word is, and there would be a transaction where this 10 USDC is being held in escrow. When I confirm that I have received the 160 Ghana cedis, probably through mobile money. Mobile money is like sort of an e-money account on your phone number. It's what most people way more used than any bank account. And mobile money is very popular, not just in Ghana, but in a lot of other African countries. I would confirm, okay, I've received the Ghana cedis on my mobile money. You can now release the 10 USDC to this agent or, other P2P network participant. And yeah, that's sort of how buying and selling crypto in Ghana, but not just in Ghana, in a lot of African countries works. That like it's a lot more about P2P going from like funds on an exchange to mobile money and back the same way.
Got it. So is Binance like predominantly like the biggest or the most used exchange in Africa, or are there something else?
Yeah, they're definitely the biggest. I mean there are other sort of uh teams out there, whether it's some countries have a little bit of Coinbase access, but signing up for Coinbase isn't as easy in African countries as signing up for Binance. Binance is definitely uh, much better, unless maybe you're using some sort of foreign details to sign up. And, there's Yellow Card, which is which at least I've heard about. Like I've seen it in the App Store rankings. I've never actually used Yellow Card myself, but Yellow Card is an more Africa-focused exchange that's out there. Um, you know, there are apps that are coming up that are either fintech apps that have some crypto features or sort of like crypto specific, apps that are popping up to try and help people like benefit from crypto. Like when I recently just got back from vacation. I was in Kenya. I was using this app called Accrue a lot. Accrue is basically like it allows you to buy US dollars with mobile money and like sell US dollars into mobile money and send in between African countries very easily. And in the background, it's all just stable coins. It's really just a stable coin app, but its front end isn't it doesn't like scream crypto when you open it up. It just looks like this is just a fintech app where you deposit your local currency and it gets converted into dollars, and then you can send and receive and all of that. And Crew is a pretty nice user experience when it comes to the on and off ramping. Again, similar to the Binance situation, it's all P2P. So there are all these accrue agents, and when I want to deposit Ghana cedis and get dollars in my accrue account, there's an exchange with another person in the P2P network, and that's how money gets on and off. But yeah, Binance is definitely the market leader by far, and what most people would have encountered or heard of if they were trying to get into crypto.
That's actually very interesting. You mentioned both Binance and Accrue. Accrue is a really interesting use case. Um, so I think getting a little more specific to the general Web3 industry in Africa and also Ghana, are there a lot of, crypto builders out there? If there are, what kind of apps are you seeing them building the most? Or what are some of the popular verticals?
It's a good question. Accrue, for one, is a local builder, right? So they are a Ghana-based team, but I think that we're still in the early developmental stages of having like a Web3 builder ecosystem in Africa. I mean, there's a lot of really great programs and events popping up. I mean, just end of last month, there was Accra in my sort of home city, Accra. So same as like whatever ETH Denver or ETH Lisbon, you got a big hackathon, like 100+ participants and like sponsors from all of these big teams, and people going to maybe build their first ever crypto app at this hackathon. And you've got similar stuff with I know that there's ETH Safari in Kenya, which I've heard maybe the output maybe not as high quality as ETH Accra, so there's maybe some bias there, but I also think that maybe they might just be making progress. And there's events in Nigeria like Web3 Lagos, which I'm not sure is a hackathon or a conference. I think maybe more of a conference. Um, but yeah, there's people starting communities to organize and educate and get people onboarded to like either understanding how crypto works or like understanding crypto works. And yeah, I think we will start to see some interesting stuff out of that, of like people who are getting onboarded into the community through these communities, eventually trying to make their own stuff that will hopefully be, sort of better targeted to their local market than stuff that would be built by teams working from elsewhere, whether that's Berlin or New York or wherever, crypto teams set up nowadays.
Have you seen any particular difficulties when it comes to acquiring new users? I think this can be in crypto and also can be non-crypto, just like different dApps. What are some difficulties of onboarding users in Ghana or in Africa in general?
I mean, I think that problems are most of the problems are not unique problems in terms of just a lot of the stuff that we do in the crypto space is just hard to explain, and we're not very great at communication. Like just sort of getting people familiar with the idea of just like, hey, this is what we mean when we say like tokens on the blockchain, and here's how to set up your wallet, and here's how to not lose all of your money when you put your private key somewhere, and these are the opportunities that are available to you. I think just making people aware that that's even an option and doing that in a way that is easy to understand and actionable, same as anywhere else. I think that's sort of a lot of the main issue. And of course, there is accessibility issues around like somebody who is a university graduate who's doing a normal job in the US has more disposable income than somebody in Ghana to like experiment and play around with using some app or trading something. Somebody in the US or the UK can easily say like, hey, let me just like use $10 or £10 to just try this out. Whereas in Ghana, $10 or £10 is a lot of money. So it's not casual, to just try stuff out with what in a lot of situations in crypto is like the bare minimum that you need to kind of get started. And there's even like basic limits on how much you can buy on an exchange. Like you can't like make a transaction on Binance that's less than 10 US dollars. I mean, it just won't allow you to do that. And so there's some economic inaccessibility there, but I think it's mostly around, yeah, just sort of explain to people what crypto is and why they would even want to care about it.
Yeah. Is marketing different? So like you have experience living in Ghana, and also in UK, right? In Ghana, comparing to, the UK or the rest of the world, what like there's something people really need to focus on when they trying to do app promotions, promoting payments, like fintech technologies or dApps.
Yeah, it's pretty different. I would say that the way to think about it is that everything that worked in the UK or the US 30 years ago is what works in Ghana now. Because I mean, some people from the West might say like, "Hey, I want to do this, crypto activation in Ghana. Let me buy some Instagram ads." And like your Instagram ads probably aren't going to convert anybody. But if you were to spend a fraction of that money to like put a jingle on the radio, like Peace FM or Joy FM or something like that. Like everybody listens. You could for the fraction, you could actually you'd get a ton more coverage and conversion from like having a really good radio ad than you ever would like trying to like put some ads on Instagram or whatever it is. Having like a billboard in the right side of town will probably be seen by more people in terms of like advertising your crypto event. Oh, it's like, oh, we're doing this hackathon or we're doing this conference. Having a big billboard in the center of town will like get so many more people interested than again like doing the normal sort of digital marketing playbook that is sort of the way to do things elsewhere. Not to say that people aren't online. People are online, but it's just that like a lot more sort of traditional media and stuff still works in Ghana in the way that it maybe doesn't work if you're elsewhere. I think that would be the main difference in my opinion.
I see, I see. Probably more like on the ground, really connecting people, connecting the community. You probably have to make people see what you're doing or show them what you're doing.
Yeah. Like I mean, outside of just the traditional media stuff that we were talking about, whether it's like radio, billboards, or what, being on TV, or whatever it is. I mean, also there is a lot more needs to do stuff in person at home. And if you think about the biggest sort of fintech successes in Africa over the past decade, something like, well, mobile money comes to mind, obviously, whether that's M-Pesa in Kenya or MTN mobile money in Ghana. And all of these mobile money services, it's not like I mean, the mobile money is it's even I was gonna make a comparison to the sort of the neobanks that the West has, like Monzo or Starling or Revolut or whatever it is, but they're way bigger than any of those because, maybe in the UK some people use Monzo or Revolut. In Ghana, everybody uses mobile money. Like these are like the most by penetration, the most successful fintech stories the world has ever seen. And all of these mobile money services have a ton of in-person infrastructure. I mean, MTN Mobile Money has physical locations all over the country where people can go and like deposit cash to get like, whatever money in their mobile money account or withdraw in cash or speak to a representative to get them set up or do this or do that. And the same with M-Pesa in Kenya or whichever service you're talking about in whichever country. I mean, yeah, I think that if you want to sort of penetrate the highest level of like if you wanted to build like the biggest possible fintech company that you could in Ghana or another African country, you couldn't really formulate a plan that makes sense that doesn't involve like having physical underground locations and people talking to people and a way to get cash in and out of your ecosystem. And yeah, that's just very different to other countries where, I mean, if you're in wherever it is, Singapore or London, you can start an app that is online and has no physical presence whatsoever, and you can, be successful and find yourself on the cover of Forbes just doing that. But there are just other requirements in a country like Ghana.
I actually have a really funny story to tell. I'm at Korean blockchain today, and then I met this team that's building wallets. They're more focusing on traders. Like out of nowhere in the past few months, they saw this huge surge of trading activities in Nigeria. They never marketed there. The trading volume isn't that much, right? Because I don't think, just like you mentioned, like $10 would be like so much for average folks in some of the African countries, but they were so passionate and they were like making these crazy like really really passionate videos talking about the product. And I think this is more of like a question that I'm personally really interested in. What is like the culture like in Africa when it comes to trying a new thing, promoting something to your friend, or for example like crypto is like a really new thing to a lot of people in Ghana, right? So what is like the culture that builds these trust and bond between people?
It's Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, there's definitely a difference in however you want to say it, the social structure or the social bonds at home compared to in a country like the UK or the US. I feel like in the UK or the US or Europe, people are definitely a lot more stick, like sort of everybody for themselves, and maybe at most they're like nuclear family. Um, Whereas I think that, I mean, at least in Ghana, and I'm sure in other African countries as well, people are more integrated into their communities in a way that you don't see as much in the West, whether that's you know, their hometown community, their church community, their high school community. Like people just are in both good ways and bad ways, people are just a lot more connected socially. And that can create a difference when it comes to things spreading. If you're like in my whatever social circle at home, if there is some news that happens to somebody who I maybe don't even remember them, they just went to primary school or whatever, like all of the moms and all of the aunties will be on WhatsApp, like, send all the messages to each other in 15 different group chats that I about. And suddenly, hundreds of people who have not even seen the person in question in years will like know this information about what this has happened to this person. Like things spread a lot more, just lots of WhatsApp groups, a lot more gossip, and also just people just knowing a lot more people and being a lot more involved in other people's lives than I think is sort of common now in Western countries.
Okay, I have a last question. Since, you're a builder yourself, is there something you want to see people are building in, this can be, in Ghana or in Africa, crypto wise? or it could be like fintech or even like Web2 apps. Like, is there something you think people should be looking at? They should be exploring in a specific direction?
The answers here aren't so complex in a lot of ways. If you think about most services that just work in, whether it is China or Europe or wherever it is, you could really just do the same thing well in Ghana and people would be excited about that. Like, I don't know, you want to start like a really good savings product or a really good like loans product or a really good um, you know, cross cross Africa like money transfer app for businesses or whatever it is. But I think that you have an interesting opportunity with crypto because you can build financial services without being an institution, with the access to full liquidity and all that. Uh, and the ideas are not some sort of third dimension chess mind game, DeFi Ruby Goldberg machine with 82 different steps. You have a white paper with PhD level math in it. It's really just, hey, you could just do normal stuff. Just provide normal financial services in a nice interface with good customer service. And, if you do it right, people would be pretty happy about that. And it's more of a matter of uh rather than being a gigabrain, really just, you know, providing good service in a way that, our existing banks and institutions are just not that great at providing a good service. Uh, and yeah, I think that the opportunity just lies in the fact that uh, with access to global liquidity and with being able to just program a bunch of stuff that would normally need to be done by hundreds of employees in a financial institution, you could probably build a lot of interesting financial services faster and cheaper and more efficient uh, than normal fintech could in the country. And it's different. That's not really the case, say, for instance, in the UK. In the UK, if you're starting a fintech company, probably really just start a normal fintech company. You'd probably be better off doing that. And I mean, history has shown that the case. Like Revolut, Monzo, all of these guys are doing fine. If you're in the US or the UK, probably just do that. But if you're in Ghana, I think that it is actually the case where you could build a product that is just as good or better using crypto as opposed to trying to go through the traditional finance means because the traditional finance setup just doesn't work at home as well as it works in other places. So yeah, that's the sort of the opportunity that's out there and what the difference is.
Interesting. Besides like fintech or financial related stuff, what do people in Ghana like to do? Having fun, spend their money on?
I mean, it's all the normal stuff here. I mean, people, whatever it is, go to the pub, go to a concert. I mean, nowadays, despite the fact that things are bad financially, tourism in Ghana has actually picked up quite a bit over the past few years. I mean, around Christmas time, there's like a ton of music festivals at home, and like people, every time I go back, there's like all of these interesting new like restaurant ideas popping up and all of that. And like, oh, somebody's opened like a mini golf thing here, or somebody's doing like a whatever it is, a clay throwing workshop or whatever. It's really just normal stuff. And it's a matter of, I think just progressing as a country to a place where regular people can get off from work and go and enjoy all of these great things that we have, as opposed to being stressed out about the fact that, you know, everything's falling apart and there's no money anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the future plan for you? Is there any sectors you wanted to work on in crypto? Are you building anything new?
Yeah, my plan is still being written. I mean, I am probably going to be doing pretty much the same stuff that I'm doing now for the next few years. I mean, I enjoy working as a crypto data consultant or contractor or whatever the name is, helping out different teams build out the data solutions that they need. I like the flexibility that it gives me. I like having the sort of the diversity of problems to work on. And yeah, so far so good. So I'll probably keep doing that. But I'll also keep working on new public open source goods like Bundle Bear, and we'll see whether or not any of those becomes useful enough that I would have to like spend less time contracting to spend more time on one of those projects. We'll just see. Uh, just because of taking every month as it comes. Nothing too crazy there.
So is it like mainly because of the flexibility? So you don't want to fully commit to, for example, like building a product out, like current stage.
I mean, I like the flexibility, but when it comes to the difference between this and like working on a product of my own, the more difference just comes in that like I'm not really a product person. I'm a data person. There's sort of the skill set and the motivation to for somebody to be like say like I want to be like a product founder or that founder to being a data scientist. Like being a data scientist happens to be the thing that I enjoy doing and that I'm really good at and that I'm just going to like try and become better at and try and be the best at and focus in for the next for the sort of foreseeable future. And I think that yeah, there are other people who have that burning desire and that sort of that talent for like making new products for scratch and going out and finding customers and raising money and doing the whole change the world thing. And it's just a different game. But I like the game that I'm playing at the moment.